I'm joined by Richard Hogan, psychotherapist and author. Richard, before we go into what I want to talk to you about, tell me about your book.
Hi, Owen. Great to be on the podcast. My book, Home is Where the Start is a book all about the family, about the systems of the family, and about how our families are messy. And all of us come out of these messy families, and they create a lot of the paradigms by which we live our whole lives. And I work clinically, and I've got a clinic myself here in town, and I work with so many clients, and I see them throughout their lives, from teenagers right up, till a lot later in life, living out paradigms that were created for them a long time ago. And it's about unpacking all of that stuff.
It's interesting because I came across this. I read Katrina O'Sullivan's book. I don't know if you've read it, Poor. And she referenced something in that where she said, and you can correct me because this is my layman's terms on it. Basically, she said, when times are difficult, you revert back to what your norm was. And if your norm was chaos, you're going to revert back to chaos. And it was really fascinating to me because if you think about it, in her example, what she was just about to go for big exams, and the week before, she basically went off and had a lot of drink and whatever else, and reverted back to what she had grown up with. Default.
Yeah.
It's a really interesting concept.
Absolutely. That's what actually my book. I know Katrina well. We did a book festival there together a couple of weeks ago in Westport. She's fantastic, and that's what my book is about. It's about how to overcome that default position, how to rewrite and rewire your brain, because none of us come into the world thinking that we're not good enough. None of us come into the world thinking that we're not enough, or we're not attractive, we're not funny, we're not nice. None of us come in with those concepts. We get taught those for the family we come up in, the position in the family, eldest, youngest, middlest, only child, whatever it is. And then the systems like school and our peer groups, all of that stuff helps to form the story that we tell ourselves about who we are around 7, 8, 9. It's a crucial time zone where we develop that story as well about money and about, finances and being extravagant and living well and all that stuff. All of that stuff starts early in our lives. And the book is about how to overcome that, because we all come out of a mess. I came out of mess myself, and my own story is in there. I grew up in a family where my father was an alcoholic, and that stuff really disrupted my own development through life. And so I was trying to tell that story about what it was like to be me growing up, and then how I overcame that stuff. So the book is kind of like my own story, is like the theory and practice, how to overcome negative ideas about yourself.
So what you're saying to me is you're born... I'm just going to use the word. You're born with a clean slate. You don't...
Malleable.
Okay.
You're born ready to inhale the information that's around you.
Okay, and this is a real nature-nurture question then, right? So you're born to inherit, or to inhale, use the word, the stuff that's gone around you. What about a situation where you've got, you mentioned eldest, youngest, middlest, right? What about identical twins? I know there's still one going to be older than the other. Identical twins. How is it that they come out of the same environment and can end up different?
Yeah, we don't process and we don't consume information across the species in completely the same way. I've got 3 daughters myself, and they've been generally, as much as you can, reared similar ways. Consistently, as well as we can, But there's genetic codes in there. And then there's what interests them and what has taken their, you can sit a child down and they can watch something take place in front of them, but the significance of that will be different for each one of them. And so as they're coming, it's just an incredible matrix and myriad of information that gets in for one child and not in for another child. And so we don't process that information across the species, exactly the same.
Remember as a kid, actually, it was a family and they lost their father and he died of natural causes in the house. But he was quite young. I think it was cardiac. I was too young to remember.
Shocking for the family.
But I remember the ambulance being outside. But I also remember that the kids were of different ages, like from teenagers to kind of 10, 12 to kind of 7, 8-ish. And I remember watching them over the years. It seemed to have impacted them very, very differently.
It does. That's it, you see. The significance and then the meaning making of what happened there is going to be different for each child. And that's just the uniqueness of us, that's the incredible uniqueness of our species, that we process things so differently, and what is meaning for one person has very little meaning for another person. And what is meaning for one person might become a paradigm by which you live the rest of your life, and for another person it was just an event that happened that has no meaning.
But that's interesting, because what you're saying then is you can rewrite the script.
You can, absolutely.
But you have to do that very consciously.
You start doing it consciously, because this is what my book is all about. We're all driven by these invisible forces, and we don't know them. We don't know what they are, our early attachments. How you were close. Our early attachment is so important. everything in that early life for you and for me was about getting proximity to our primary caregiver. If that was dysfunctional, avoidant or anxious, let's say, that's going to create a problem from us, a little fracture in our foundations as we go off into life and how we experience and feel love, right? So that's what's so fascinating. All of us were reared, and experienced love and give love in different ways because of the experience that we had coming through our lives. And so you can be the eldest child and you can have loads of responsibility put on you. You could be, particularly for women, the good daughter, the good mother, the good sister. By 47.2, you're probably at your most unhappy, research would show us, because those paradigms are just so overwhelmingly difficult and unsustainable.
Unfair,
Unfair, exactly. If you're the youngest kid, you're generally considered to have it easy. The brothers, the sisters, machete, the thick, jungle ahead of you, and you just waltzed through.
I'm the youngest of four boys.
Me too. I'm just thinking about what my brothers say about me. Just waltzed through there with your black quiff, and off you went, and everything works out for you. And of course, you feel like you were never taken seriously. And when you go back into your family, if you want to see an invisible force in front of you, when you go back into your family at Christmas or whatever, no matter what age you go in, you get pulled right. It's like the event horizon of a black hole. You get sucked back into that dynamic that you had when you were 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. It's incredible.
And when the event happens, could the same event, obviously it can affect different people in the family, in the household in a different way, but could it affect completely different ways? So you've brought it into the room, you've mentioned your father was an alcoholic, right? Could that affect you in a certain way in terms of your relationship with alcohol? But could it affect, and given that this is about money, let's bring it back there, right? Could it affect your brother in financial? Because your brother witnessed that he maybe, and I'm casting aspersions here, that maybe the family went without because your dad was an alcoholic.
Absolutely.
Whereas,
100%.
And is that how and has that got to do with age, or has that got to do with personality?
It's got to do with everything. It's got to do with your personality. It's got to do with some of the markers, genetic markers that are in there as well. I mean, nature, nurture, as you said, it's all at play here. And then what you actually saw as meaningful to you as a child and what made sense to you and what you felt was a difficulty. Whereas, for one child who came up in an alcoholic family, holding on to money and being protective of money mightn't be a thing at all. In fact, you might be a spendthrift, right? You might be spending it a lot just because, as what you said about Katrina, that was your default. You saw money being spent all the time. That keeps you in that paradigm, living out that kind of like fluctuating relationship with money. And so you're staying with what's familiar. So again, it's always down to the person, the personality type, the big 5 personality types at play there, right?
Tell me the 5 personality types.
Agreeableness, openness, conscientiousness, neuroticism, and let me see, what did I say? Openness, conscientiousness, agreeableness, and extroversion. And neuroticism, yeah.
What's neuroticism? Genuinely, I'm just fascinated.
Neuroticism is when your personality is kind of pinned on external things. If you're what I'd always say to a neurotic is don't get into like entrepreneur, working a nice civil service job so you don't have to worry about your money fluctuating, so you're not overanalyzing things too much, working a nice job, nice and calm. A neurotic person is prone to mood and prone to kind of like, low mood swings and that kind of stuff. And their happiness is pinned on external stuff. So it's always fluctuating.
So could a neuroticist be very inclined to spend heavily on stuff to try and get external reward?
Yes, absolutely. To get a little bit of a reward center in the brain going to feel good about themselves. Yeah. So they'll spend when they feel low. And they'll overly spend. They'll push themselves into poverty at times even. Right, for sure.
Is that a punishment thing?
Well, it's chasing that high. That spend of high,
What give us the other ones, because these are interesting.
They're really interesting now. Yeah. Openness is where you're like, interested in experiencing the world.
Okay, and
traveling, learning. You're always open to new ideas. It's really good. It's a really good, nice trait to have. Extroversion is where I'm definitely an extrovert. I get energy from being around people. I know introverts who actually find being around people exhausting. It's not that there's one right or wrong there, but there's just one person might find it exhausting to be around people. Another person might find incredible energy from being around people.
And when someone like that spends money on a concert as an extrovert, did they get it off the whole entire group room?
The whole experience is like energy filling and sustaining.
I heard a brilliant analysis or whatever you want to call it, where we have a certain amount of coins in the day. I'm sure you've heard this before. You have a certain amount and an introvert, every time they meet someone, spends a coin.
Yeah.
And an extrovert, every time they meet someone, gains a coin.
Exactly. Well,
and you have a certain amount of coins in the day. And I know it's connected to money, but it's a really interesting dynamic to me where you can have a person, and to be fair, I think it's not just you are an extrovert or you are an introvert. You can be an extrovert and introvert in different circumstances as well.
Yeah. We used to think, that's a very good point, Owen. We used to think, say, in psychology, that these 5 personality types, the big 5 we call them, were concrete things, and that was it. That was your lot. Your parents were extroverted, so you're extrovert. It's rubbish. I can be very extroverted and I can be introverted at times. I want to be on my own at times and all that. So we can leverage your personality traits. We can actually work on them, and if we want to be a little bit more extroverted, we can push ourselves to become a little bit more extroverted. If we want to be a bit more conscientious, I can be really hyper conscientious at certain things, and then I can be not so conscientious. If I don't like the thing that's in front of me, I can just avoid it and push it away. That's not very conscientious.
And is the introvert likely to have more money in their bank account because they spend on books and the other person spends on concert tickets?
Well, I mean, the introvert might be a little bit more conservative, maybe in some ways. Generally,
a bit more risk averse.
Maybe
possibly?
A little bit more risk averse, possibly. Yeah, for sure. An extrovert likes to be out there, around people. So that's if you're thinking about spending money, it possibly could be a way of maybe being a bit thrifty with your money, throwing your money around there for sure. Yeah, it's interesting.
How are you with money?
Not great.
Are you not?
No.
Why is that?
I was thinking about that coming onto the podcast, and my wife laughs at me because she's like, "You're terrible at money." She's good at money. I like to spend money, if I'm being honest.
Okay.
I see it as I think my grandmother lived with us for 20 years. And as I said, my father was an alcoholic, and he was a journalist for the Irish Times. There was a good job, a Munster correspondent for the Irish Times in the 80s and 90s, and could have had some decent money in the family, but wasn't there for sure. And I noticed it myself as a kid, around other people who had parents who were kind of wealthy and all that. And I knew the way you...
So that's because you felt there wasn't money in the house, or it was being sold. When you get it, you want to spend it to keep it for yourself.
Yeah, I want to spend it. Okay. Not even just for myself. I have 3 daughters. I love bringing them out and treating them and doing things like that with them.
It sounds like the roles are switched here. But is that because you're spending money because you're worried it mightn't be there to spend it in the future?
No, it's not that. It's kind of... I didn't have it as a child,
right?
And I want to know what that's like. I suppose if I'm really deep and think about it, I think I want to kind of. I think Freud calls it the compulsion to repeat. He's this idea that you go back in time and you might relive some stuff in your family dynamic to fix it or heal it, and heal it. And I think maybe by having the money and spending it, I'm somehow fixing the situation that I had as a child. It's interesting. So it's not there anymore. My kids don't know that. And it's certainly not in their life. And it's not that I'm just lavishing them with money. That's not the situation. But
you don't want them to recognise a lack of money either.
I don't want them to recognise. I don't want them to have any concepts of money just yet at 6 and 9. No, the 12-year-old. By God, I'm talking to her about money.
Okay,
she should be living with Donald Trump or something, because she has a lot. She goes through a lot of. She tries to go through a lot of money.
Okay.
So.
And how do you find that? And look, you know what? Say you can kick me back here if you want to. Okay, because you've kind of opened the door for me, so I'm going through it. But how do you find that in terms of your relationship with money, as a child, and how that has impacted your relationship with money for your kids and what you want to teach your kids?
Yeah, good. That's a really good question. I'm trying to give them the value of money.
Okay.
Right, I do. I try to give them the value of money, and I talk, especially I don't want to talk to the 6-year-old about the value of money. You know what I mean? I want them to be kids and not think about money so much. But I would say no to them about things for sure. Like no, that's what I write about a lot. And about psychology, they have to hear no's. No doubt about it. So they're not like they're getting things all the time. I want the 12-year-old to understand the value of money. So I'll get her to work to get the money. And so I won't be just handing it over to her. She will have to do things to get that money. You know?
And so then you're teaching her about reward. You're teaching her about the time value of money as well, which I think is one of the most important things. When I go into transition year students and I'm teaching them, or 5th and 6th years, and I'm giving them a session to them, I try and get them to convert money into time. So if you've got 80 quid in your bank account and you're looking at a pair of shoes for 80 quid, don't think about it as 80 quid. Think about it as 8 hours of your life.
Did you put
and I think that works really well, particularly for that 12 to 18-year-old. And I don't know why.
I could have done with that conversation before I bought shoes in Florence this summer. Now that I think about it, that's about 4 weeks of my life.
Do you think people, and you can talk about yourself if you want to, because the reason why I'm asking is because of your specific example. You said your wife is good with money and you're not so, and she says you're crap or whatever word she used.
She laughs at
Do you think two people are attracted to each other when they're opposites? Or is there any psychology research that suggests that two people, whether it's money related or somewhere else in life, that opposites attract?
Just working clinically, I mean, just kind of like, and just from my own experience in life and all that, and I think it's like that Plato's parable of the two spheres, and I think we're attracted to the other person that might have something that we don't have.
Oh, well.
And you'll often see, a really outgoing person, and then it might be a quieter, more, reserved, and you'd often think, what the hell do they see in each other? And my wife might be a bit like that. She might be a bit more reserved in some ways, and I suppose I think that's it. That Plato's parable of the kind of the two half spheres that kind of complete the sphere in some ways. And I would see that clinically a lot, sitting down with couples, and I can see them trying to figure out how do they actually get into the relationship to begin with, because they're so different. But it's that difference, I think, that we get drawn to.
Clinically, when you're looking at it, how often is money a problem?
It's interesting because I have to be honest, and like I work in a private practice, so it wouldn't be that. It wouldn't be in my
because
clients.
they can afford.
They can afford to come to. Yeah,
okay.
They can afford to come to private. Now, when I was training in the Mater Hospital and UCD, money would have been an issue for sure, because this would have been a service we would have provided, and so they wouldn't be paying, and so then you'd meet a different strata of society. Is
money ever? Sorry, I don't want to put words in your mouth. How often is it that money is the actual problem as opposed to the symptom of the problem?
See, in my clinic now, I have to be honest,
yes,
I don't really see it. No, I don't have enough data there to say, well, I see this across the board. I wouldn't see it enough in my own private clinic. I wouldn't see it enough to be able to comment on that really that much.
Okay,
yeah.
Okay. I can make an assumption on it based on looking at it. But I kind of see when sometimes I will have clients who will come to me in private practice, and you very quickly realise they're here because one of them wants to get the other one to do something that they're not doing financially. And whether that's to buy a holiday home or to look after the financial future, there's some problem in the finances. And they're not coming to me for couples therapy any way, right? But when you're looking at it, you go, actually, this is not a money problem. This is a communication problem. That's what it's coming down to ultimately. And just putting a third party into the room, it's not that I have special sauce or special magic or a secret recipe or anything. It's just putting someone else into the room. You can see that, okay, this now can get the communication flowing around this. And oftentimes you'll find that it creates other discussions and what they want out of life, and it can lead on to other things, which is a nice place to be.
And I think therapy like that, it just allows them to hear each other differently. That's it.
Yeah, it's really interesting because when we're talking, sometimes clients will finish up, particularly we have a process we bring clients through, but particularly after the first meeting, it's not unusual to have a few tears, not from me, from the clients, to have a few tears because we're really stirring it up. Like I'm stirring it up. What do you want out of life? What are you trying to get out of this? Yeah. And it's really interesting how connected money is to people's goals, values, objectives, but then how it then interconnects with everything else that's going on in their life.
For sure. It's like rhizomatic. It's the roots into all things. Like
When you think about your relationship with money and you think about your childhood, have you allowed yourself to just go, I am crap with money, or have you worked on it yourself?
I've gotten better.
Okay.
I was way worse in my 20s when I had no money.
Were you? As in, would you go?
I'd buy stuff like I'd buy clothes. It was always clothes. It was never like alcohol, or it was never that. It was always clothes or, nice clothes. I was always interested in that.
What do you think drives someone to do that? Why do you think someone gets, I know we talk about some of the different traits that people have, but that high that you get.
Well, there is a high from it.
There is.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it.
Yeah.
And
is that because they're missing something else in their life, or is it just, no, this is just the way I do it?
Yeah, well, I suppose this is what I often think. We can read so much into everything.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But really, what was it for me personally? I liked clothes, and I liked having something you can look
tangible.
At that. Yeah, well, a little bit different as well. That you kind of you'd like, and give you a little kick about your clothes and all that kind of stuff. And was there anything massively deep in there that was ruptured in my psychology?
But how did you fix it?
Needed filling. What?
Well, you still look dapper. So
thank you very much. I'm still into fashion. I'm still into clothes.
Yeah,
I love clothes. I absolutely love it. For sure. And if I see something like it nice, I'll buy it. Definitely. I suppose I've just gotten better at kind of like saying, what do I really need here? Do I need this? And I was in Florence over the summer, and Florence, Jesus.
Great clothes there.
It was unbelievable, but also great prices.
Right. You know what I mean? And do you ever suffer buyer's remorse after whether it's in your 20s or today?
Buyer's remorse? Not really, no.
No?
I don't lack the courage of my conviction. I shall go forward.
If I make a mistake, I'm going to stand over it, full stop.
I'm going to go full onto it, yeah. And I actually brought my daughter in. I went into this master shoemaker that I've been looking at for a long time. When I was in my 20s, I was Googling this guy called Stefano Bremer. He's like Daniel Day-Lewis, went working in his shop, of course, to figure out how to make shoes, just as you do.
Oh, yeah, of course, yeah.
And I was thinking about myself, as I get older, I'd like to learn how to make shoes and all that. So I went into the shop. Now, they are ridiculously expensive shoes, and I went in with my 12-year-old daughter, and I bought a pair of shoes, and I could see her going,
"You're what? You're doing what? Dad?
What?" You know, I could see her looking at me like that, and I was like, "Well, this is, you know, this is a treat to myself for the book. I put 1.5 years of my life into that book, and so this is just a little bit of that, just to say well done for writing that book." So I was putting a little bit of the value back onto it for her, but I could see her thinking, you can get nice things in life, but you have to work to achieve those nice things. They don't just fall out of the sky for you.
Are you really conscious about it with the kids in terms of trying to instill it into them?
I am, for sure.
Yeah. That's really important though, isn't it?
It is, but I just want to go back to my grandmother, because I am a spendthrift. I don't weigh up money, and I will buy, you know.
So when you say spendthrift, you mean you're happy to spend lavishly?
Happy. I'm generous with money.
Okay.
And I wouldn't be thinking, Jesus, did you buy me a drink there, Owen? You know, I'll get my one back now. Here, it's not the way my mind works. But I just remember as a kid, my grandmother used to always say to me, "Don't ever marry a tight woman." She was born in 1912, like, you know what I mean? And she was like, "I dated a tight fella once," and she used to always say, "It's a sign into their soul." That was her phrase. It's a sign into someone's soul. And as a 10-year-old kid, I was thinking, tightness is a sign into someone's soul. I better not be flipping tight here. But I think it's a bit of openness as well. I don't worry. I work hard. I work long hours, and I work different jobs and doing lots of work, and so I have reasonably comfortable lifestyle. So
it's one of the things, like, reward is really important, and particularly when you're putting the work in. And it's what you're trying to teach your 12-year-old as well. It's about reward because you did the job, you got paid this, and it's a really great value to instill from a financial perspective. But it's also something that people get caught out on a lot. Like, you get a couple and they're saving for a deposit for a house, and it's going to take them 3 years, 4 years, whatever it's going to take them. And one of the most important things is those little rewards along the way. That if you save consistently for 6 months, you shouldn't kick the crap out of yourself for taking some money out to go away for a weekend together. And you need to provide yourself with those little rewards.
Because you won't enjoy the house in the end by the time you get to it. You know, life would have been so 5 years of dull.
Yeah,
you know?
And you need to live your life. Final question. Okay. If you could tell your 10-year-old self something now about money.
Buy those shoes, man.
Buy those shoes. You're going to buy them one day.
Yeah, no, it's a really good question. If I could talk to my 10-year-old self, and
what I want you to do is talk to your 10-year-old self with all the knowledge you have professionally and in life.
Yeah.
And I want you to tell your 10-year-old self something about money.
Yeah, no, it's a really good... well, I know the first thing I'd say is don't buy that house in 2006. Hang on a couple of years there now. Don't buy that house. What I would say to myself is, I didn't get an awful lot of lessons coming through as a kid. You know what I mean? People didn't sit down with me and give me... I worked all this stuff out myself. I've done PhDs. And, I've done a lot of work to be here, somewhat formed and somewhat reasonable thinking. I would really talk to that kid, because he didn't really believe himself too much. You know, he struggled with a bit of dyslexia and all that, and probably didn't think that he was intelligent and that. So I would definitely have said to him, if you want to bring something into your life, you got to work in the interest of your future self, and don't always be looking for self, gratification in the instant, in the immediate. You have to delay that gratification at times to bring something really, into your life, rewarding into your life. I figured that out about 23, 24, but for a long time I didn't know that you had to put hard work in to achieve something. Yeah. I kind of expected that it might just land in your lap somehow, or maybe it was never for me. Yeah. I kind of believed that too. And so I just needed someone to say, if you want to get that thing, you got to save. If you want to kind of be viable going forward in your 20s and your 30s and with your children, you got to, work in that interest of that future self and put away stuff and put away money, because, those ideas of a rainy day and all that, you don't think about that when you're a kid. But I kind of needed that advice for sure. And I would really talk to them about how to achieve something.
Okay. So if I'm allowed, summarize it. What you're basically, if we were to put it into a sentence, delayed gratification is greater reward. Much more
sustaining happiness will come into your life when you do that.
Yeah,
I think we're living in the age of extreme individualism, and we're told on social media all the time, if you want to be happy, do what you want. Like, that is antithetical to happiness. Doing what you want in the moment is actually the opposite of you achieving any sustainable happiness going forward. And you have to work in the interest of your future self to build towards something, because we feel happiness. We don't have to feel that emotion. We feel it because we're working towards something positive, and that's often delaying something in the now. And that's a much more, if you think about it, when do you ever really feel happy? Remember those Leaving Cert results where you did pretty well, or your college results? You worked hard and you got the result. That's probably the best happiness you feel. going forward in your life, you know, and you see your children growing up and you see them coming into, you know, you put some really solid stuff and work with them there. That's where you feel you're most happy, I think, in life, where you put something really, because rearing kids is so hard, you put something in there, really, you know, and you work hard at it. It's not perfect. It's not a game of perfection or anything like that. But you see the reward and you kind of go, that was it. That's what I was working for. That's kind of like, to me, the meaning of life.
Yeah. And you've summed it up very, very well. You are up for an Irish Book Award.
Yes, I am. I'm very happy with that.
And actually, maybe by the time this goes out, we'll know.
Yeah, it's out. It's out on Wednesday.
So it's 2 days' time. You'll know.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, best of luck with that.
Well, thank you very much.
And before we stop recording, what I am going to say to you is will you come back on with us again when we need you?
I would love to come back on. It's lovely here. So I want to thank you for inviting me on. It's great.
Thanks, Richard.